I mean, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, look, here's the doctors are typically, intelligent people, right?
Yes.
I'll stop short of saying highly intelligent, and I will say intelligent people. If you and I can figure this out pretty easily, I'm sorry, I don't have a pass for a doctor, especially someone that is intelligent enough and actually wants to make a difference. Right. I think what happens is, you've got the insurance companies and you've got all that billing and, set pricing and, all this other stuff. They can't handle that. So they have to hire more people just to handle all the insurance crap. And, my father was a doctor.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was one of his biggest things is he needed more people just to deal with billing insurance companies and denials and appeals and all the stupidity that comes along with that whole mess, right? Only to get, probably shortchanged in some areas and, probably okay in others. But, you need more people for that than he did for the entirety of his practice, And
Yeah.
so you start looking at it and it's not that the job doesn't pay as well anymore. It's just that you have to pay so many people to provide the infrastructure to be able to bill people, which is, I don't know if it's still a trend, but I remember about 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, my doctor, had a talk with me. I went in to see him and he said, look, yeah, I just want to let you know, I'm changing, moving practice and, here's where I'm going to be and blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, okay, cool. So I can just follow you there. And he was like, well, if you want to. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, but I'm no longer taking insurance. So you can self-bill, or you can pay in cash. The cash is obviously heavily discounted. And at that point I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. But there was a big move from doctors because of that fact. It's like it took their quality of life and tanked it. And primarily it's just dealing with insurance and billing.
It is, and it's so much worse than that. I mean, we don't even have time to go into all of it. I mean, I'm not giving doctors a pass, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's as straightforward. So I mean, I am an engineer by trade. I think even before I worked in the field that I did, I've always been very analytical, and you're pretty analytical yourself. So I mean, I think we're a little better equipped to sort of break things apart. And even that, there's parts that I've struggled upon. But I will say that in capitalization of everything, whenever you're trying to squeeze as much money out of it as possible, there's a lot of complete bullshit that's going on. And quite frankly, I think that government regulations is probably the only way to like limit how much bullshit can happen. I mean, to pure capitalism, I think has
I'm going to
flaws.
disagree with that one, but all right, we'll go with that.
I don't generally like, I think less government is better in almost every single situation, but there are certain scenarios where capitalism run amok is more harmful than putting some regulation on it. And honestly, I think our main problem with government is that we tend to focus on things that are the wrong things.
Well, I would argue that none of what we see today, none of it, is capitalism. So anyone, going after capitalism for this, I think is barking up the wrong tree. Just right out of the gate. Capitalism is a very simple thing. I have something that you want. I agree that I will sell it to you at a certain cost, and you agree that that is something I want, and yes, I'll pay that cost. We then exchange whatever goods, services, or fiscal instrument that is available, and we walk away. There's nobody else involved. That's capitalism.
Yes, but capitalism is more than that.
But wait, what we have here is you have something to sell. So now you go to government and you say, I need a permit to sell my thing. And they give you a permit, and then they want to inspect and do whatever else they need. And you fill out forms. And of course, they give you another thing so you can actually sell Like, you can be a wholesaler, and then all this stuff goes on, and then I go and do this, and like I want to buy this thing, but do I need a permit to buy it? Okay, well then now I need to go. And what you've got is defined as crony capitalism, right? And that's what it is. And whenever you inject a third party that isn't mutually agreed upon into that transaction, capitalism isn't the thing you're talking about at that point, right?
Well,
So,
well, I think it is unabridged capitalism allows any exchange of goods and any rules for any reason whatsoever. So, I mean, it depends on, yes, there could be a more specific term for the particular thing that I'm trying to say, but what I am trying to say is that I think like a rule against monopolies, I'm not thinking that's a terribly bad thing to have because where there's no competition, capitalism falls apart, for example,
yeah,
similarly with this whole scenario with doctors, like it probably shouldn't be allowed to do something that's to the detriment of the American people, and the government probably should have some kind of law or rule. I say this without having a well thought out what that should be, but there probably should be some sort of guardrail to prevent what's happening from happening legally. That's all I'm trying to say here, because
sure, sure.
right now, the things that are happening that we're talking about are completely legal and they're causing a lot of harm.
Oh, they are, without question, right? There's absolutely no question. The problem that you've got, and I'm going to go back to that Milton Friedman quote, right? Anytime you look, government got involved with our air conditioning units. Now they cost 5 times as much, and the max you get out of one is 15 years. That's it.
True.
Washing
Yeah.
machines. They got involved with washing machines. Every time they get involved in something, the price goes up, the quality goes down, and the service is trash. And it just is, right? So, I hear what you're saying. I think there are probably, and I haven't thought through this because you just brought it up. I have no knowledge you
Yeah.
were going to talk about this. So, I haven't thought all the way through it, but I think there are probably better ways to handle things like this. And then, the whole monopoly argument, yeah, okay, maybe. But right now we have a system that is built on monopolies that tell other people whether or not they're going to be a monopoly or they are a monopoly and need to be broken up. So,
I don't think what we have is right. I think what we have violates the law that it is. It's that there is a problem. So I mean, I think fundamentally we're probably more in agreement than not, because I think
oh, I agree.
government should be the minimum necessary for people to get along in a sandbox. No more. That should be basically what's happening there. Anything more than that, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you can make any argument about what should or should not be, but to me, in a world where everyone is afforded the freedom and the will to do as they see fit, as long as it's not harming another person or some sort of scenario like that, there anything else that you're doing, you're making that decision for someone and taking that away from someone. And honestly, I would argue that our ability to make dumb choices and to fail is as important as the ability to make smart choices and succeed.
It's more
It is.
important.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
right? It's
So-
one of those things that's, as children, it's important to have those accidents. It's important to figure things out, like fire is hot.
yes,
I mean, it all the way through life. Failure will teach you way more than success ever will.
100%. Assuming you survive it.
Well,
The problem is, though, right? You guys just don't take enough antidepressants and stuff like that. You don't have enough fluoride in your diet.
This video brought to you by.
This is the same reason why your A1C is too high, because you obviously have a lack of metformin or GLP-1 in your system, right?
You know what the problem with that is, right?
What is that?
So the GLP-1 inhibitors. So I'm greatly oversimplifying it, but I mean, so aside from the very obvious thing, which is diabetics who depend upon that to like basically not be in life or death situations, uh, are having a hard time getting GLP-1s because they're being sold as weight loss drugs so abundantly that no one can get it anymore. Well, no one's not the right statement, but let's just say that there is a very competitive amount of effort required to just get that to continue to exist. But the real cost of GLP-1 inhibitors, it affects it on an overly simplified level. It affects your digestion in a way where you're not absorbing as much stuff, and that's not generally a problem. It's probably one of the safest ways that we've come up with so far to like lose weight or not gain weight, I should say, or whatever. But the thing that nobody thinks about is that like proteins, specifically amino acids, which is what proteins get broken down into, our bodies cannot make many of them, and we must eat them to survive, and we need to have a certain amount of that to live. When you do not have that to live, you start to have muscles and various tissues like bones get weaker, your cardiac system becomes weaker, you start to have failures, you start to have all kinds of problems that happen. And as it happens, when you limit what you're absorbing, uh, most people, they're just taking it as the magic drug and saying, "Oh, so I want to just take a thing, not feel hungry, and eat less and be fine." And as a result, they're now not consuming enough proteins to sustain their own tissue, and they're actually atrophying. And it's actually there's a few studies that have been shown that actually show that a large majority of weight loss by a lot of people that are taking GLP-1s is actually in muscle atrophy, not actually much of anything else. I'm not saying that it's that simple, but
That's one of the reasons when I've talked to anyone about this, my wife included, right, is, forget the scale. Stop,
Yeah.
just stop. I mean, honestly, is the number that you're looking for on the scale really what you're looking for? Or are you looking for the way you look, the way you feel, the energy levels you have? Because if what you're looking for is, I want to be in a certain shape and I want to feel a certain way, et cetera, that number means nothing. In fact, surprising to a lot of people, and I think females really fall into this one, and apologies, it's a generalization, but I think they really do fall into this, is that you can actually get to your perfect body or whatever that you might have, and you might actually gain like 10 pounds. And you look amazing. You're perfect. Everything about it is exactly where you want to be, except that number. It went the wrong way. And so just stop. I mean, literally stop. And then on the GLP-1s, one of the things that I haven't done a lot of research on this, right? Because this isn't a problem that I've been faced with personally. But, I'm surrounded in good company that is knowledgeable. The fact of the matter is protein itself is essential. Yes. No question about it. However, you cannot get enough protein for a number of your systems, your cardiovascular being one of the main ones, unless you also have a quantity of fat with that protein. You must have fat. Lean protein by itself will kill you. You will die. Okay.
Fat is necessary. Absolutely.
It's essential. And so the GLP-1s are literally, sequestering that fat to be, expelled. Right. Is anyone like thinking like, is it doing with all the fats? Is it as targeted? Is it even targeted? And if not, are we really causing like a major health problem that's going to show up in, years, right?
We're definitely making things worse. Again, you look at the statistics, things have gotten bad since seed oil was introduced. Things were bad when processed foods were introduced. Things got bad. Things got really bad. And I think we're seeing like, exponential, multiple factors building on each other. But
when you take toxic substances like fluoride, it's a toxic substance, and you put it in the water supply, and then you do things like seed oils. These literally, this is not a joke. I'm not making it up. Go look it up. Are heavy equipment machine lubricants that they decided at some point, oh, look, we can make this food. Freaking cool, dude. So, it's just, And again, I go back to, sure, there are targeted areas where a toxic substance can be used to benefit, right? We know this. But in general, putting anything toxic in your body of any quantity is not good for your body. It may need so much to have visible symptoms, etc., but your body is still going to recognize that as a toxic substance, and it's going to attempt to deal with it. So even in tiny quantities, you're still causing reactions in your body that it shouldn't normally have to deal with, right? This should be an emergency situation. I just ate something and oops, now my body has to deal with it. It shouldn't be every day I'm putting toxins in very low doses into my body.
Yeah. And technically our bodies are more capable than people realize. It's just that our diet, and again, I'm not sure that I don't really think it started out as this conspiracy where everybody did a thing. I think a bunch of people found a way to get rich, and they've since discovered the truth and will not let that get out. And they've got billions of dollars that they'd rather spend on keeping people from taking their market away rather than anything else. But when it comes to like seed oils, for example, like they're one of the worst things for us. Like here's a thing that like not many people know. So I mean, I you probably can't tell on here because I'm still fairly white color, but I mean, I've always been like very pasty white. Like you could put me on a beach next to an Irish person and probably not tell the difference. But my facial hair was the only defining ability to tell. Well, I used to also burn like crazy. Like the smallest amount of sunlight had to have like SPF 1,000,000. I mean, it was like whatever was available to like not come away with sunburns. And I mean, it wasn't really a problem. It was what I was told was the right thing. Again, everything is actually completely reverse. But it turns out that this is not even controversial. So seed oils, the main problem with seed oils is not necessarily nutrition, although there is plant toxins, which is something that I would jump into some. But I mean, regardless of what the toxin is, there's a linoleic acid or whatever, which is a omega-6 that builds up in your body, and we have a ratio that we can tolerate. And when we have too much of it, our body has to like figure out ways of storing it and so forth. As it turns out, many studies have shown that the omega-6s tend to get deposited near the surfaces of our skin, and as it turns out, omega-6s are especially vulnerable to UV radiation, and there is a lot of studies that strongly suggest a lot of sunburns that happen is influenced by the high amount of omega-6s in our diet. It also is a large amount of evidence to suggest that a lot of skin cancer is actually mutations coming from UV rays breaking down those fatty acids and causing damage to cells nearby. And so there's, I mean, I'm not saying it's definitive, but I'm saying there's enough science to say that there's stronger evidence there than there are on several of the things that I think are stupid right now that we're following. But it's ultimately. Okay, that's what I want to say real quick is so. I don't know. Just not everyone knows this. When you saw me, I was a lot much fatter last time when we were in.
You're looking. You look. I mean, it's a huge difference. Both of you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, LX. I don't know. We're kind of running long on this one. I'm okay with that, but LX went through a journey of getting off.
We're still on that path, but that way you and I have gone on a similar path. We were both diabetic. My A1C was above 11 or something like that. I think it was almost up to 14 at one point or something like that. It was
Wow.
crazy, and now it's 5 something normalish. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it has been. But it's definitely a path, and that's with no medication. And I've been able to get off all that stuff, so I'm happy with that.
And it's just great. And I say it's diet, right? I
mean, 100%.
Primarily, right?
So I'm 120 pounds lighter, and I've kept it off for almost 3 years now.
Me too. And exactly. I think that's about how much it is.
Just understanding the basics of how things work. For me, it all started with when I got a glucose meter and could test my own blood sugars because most things have rather immediate reactions, and you can see exactly what happens when the doctor's like, potatoes are okay, eat as many potatoes as you want, and I go check my blood sugars. I'm like, you're fucking lying, man, because this is not okay.
Or right. Or my
Yeah.
wife has a CGM, and we're finding that there's so many foods that have stuff in it that, like, if you don't
Yes.
meticulously look at the, like, she was making a salad, which, it was like, supposed to be healthy, but the dressing had, I forget, even I think maltodextrin in it, and that's just right through the roof, like, so that's out. But you don't know that stuff unless you have that data to go from.
Yeah, I think the whole first year of my diabetic experience was first decoding the lies, and then once I had the majority of the facts, it was discovering things hidden in fucking everything, like literally everything. Seed oils, I did not realize they were in things that didn't even seem like they could have seed oils in them. It's like, this seems like a whole food, but you check the ingredients and nope, they must have like injected seed oils in it. Like, yeah. It's because you feel full because there's calories in all fats, and it's the weight is heavier. So I mean, basically, it's funny because we all make jokes about the Lay's potato chips, like basically like, oh, it's 90% air and 10% chips. And I'm thinking like, man, I kind of wish that these food industries had done the same things. I'd rather have a very small portion of healthy food than have all this filler added to it. And again, not to bring it back to government, but like food labels is such a thing that pisses me off so much. So there's all of these rules that make no fucking sense. Like if you apply an engineering mindset to any of it, the way things are, it is like designed to be exploited. Like there's no two ways around it. I mean, you can include this in this case and omit it in this case, and you can round it up and round it down in this case, and there's so many rules. And like the ingredients list, which is supposed to tell you the main thing, maltodextrin. I mean, aside from being a flavor carrier, which is special in a way where it exempts it from even needing to be listed in some cases, there's so many other purposes. But also, it's also one of the so there's. I mean, you know this as well as I know this, but like a lot of people probably don't realize that there's hundreds of various forms of sugars, and many of them are very similar to each other. And so when you want to like not have an ingredient show up as like first or second on the list, if you instead put like 10 different sugars in there and have them all be an equal portion, now they're all way down the list, and now you can't tell that that's there, and it hides it from the thing. I don't like how they do serving sizes. It's so ridiculous. Like, I mean, carnivores joke about bacon. They're like, it should be one serving size for the whole container because nobody opens it up and just eats what. But I mean, it's true of so many other things. Like, how many things do you only eat the one serving size for? Because it's almost none, right?
We just talked about this. You brought this up, right? Tic Tacs, prime example. Tic Tacs, sugar free. It says on the label, it's sugar free. It is almost all sugar, but it falls under that 0.5 gram per serving of reporting.
Serving is one. Who eats one Tic Tac, right? I mean, come on.
The serving size is one. So, people out there are looking at it, always, no sugar, free, sugar free. It's not. It's anything
sugar.
but.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's anything but just the reporting requirements. So that's another way they get around it. And, we were talking about just dried fruits, right? You have to pay super close attention because so many of those things, they add sugar into them. Why? I mean, it's already being dehydrated, which is concentrating that fructose in there. So you're literally getting a bite full of like very sugary stuff anyway, and then they just load it with more sugar. And it's because it's addicting.
That's exactly it.
And that's the key thing there is sugar is, I would probably say it's right up there with nicotine, which is right up there with heroin, Yeah.
I've experimented with a few things and had no problem just being like, nope, I don't want that anymore. And what I can tell you is getting off of carbs, not just sugar, but like it is one of the most difficult addictions I've ever had to deal with. Like, it had symptoms even when I was like 99% of the way off of that, and I got rid of that last like 1%. Like, the symptoms that I faced and it rewires your brain. This
Yeah.
is probably more than I should share, but it's like, I have a brother who was hooked on some hard drugs for a while, and I've seen druggy personality. I've seen druggy brain. I know what the 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 mentality is. Like, you you think that you're thinking normally, but you're justifying things in some ways. Well, I've experienced that after getting off of carbs, because you're like, I'm hungry, but then you don't want to eat anything that's healthy. You only want things, and it's funny because you'll invent things that you didn't even know had carbs in it. And I've learned that when I'm like, oh, only this sounds good, you dig into the ingredients far enough, and you'll find, oh, guess what? There was something in there, and my brain knew that there was carbs in there, but I wasn't aware of it, consciously, and
Yep. Yep.
but yeah, the carb
You know,
addiction
and
was, holy crap.
oh yeah, and for the first, at least for me, and I've done it, a few times throughout my life for different reasons.
Yeah.
But there's a period, at least for me, like there's a good solid 30-day period where I just don't feel comfortable in my skin, and I'm hungry, but I'm not hungry. Like, my
Yeah.
body is crying for this crap, and it literally it's a physical feeling, and that, mental, emotional kind of ringer that you go through for that period of time. It's challenging. It's very difficult.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's very much like you've seen an alcoholic detox. It's the same symptoms but dialed up worse. Basically, it's all the same things, and your brain is going to tell you things that aren't really true. You have to have, I mean, I developed litmus tests. Like I said, it's like, does a piece of meat sound good to me? If it doesn't, then I'm just going to wait until it does. Or that was the kind of thing that because I eventually had the realization that, like, that wasn't actual hunger, that I was like, oh, I'm hungry, but nothing sounds good. Like, no, that wasn't the case. It was addiction, that flat out. And it is crazy how that works. And yeah, of course you're going to put something addicting in the product, because that's going to sell more product. And
Yep. Well, hey, this has been a really awesome session, but
yeah,
we're way long
yeah, way
on
over.
what we normally do, right? I mean, we even talked
Yeah.
about this for a little while, right? And I appreciate you giving us your time. It's been a really good conversation, but first, right off the bat, would love to get you back on. I think there's so many things I'd like to go into with you and just have more discussion on. If you're willing, we'd love to get
Oh
you
yeah.
back at some point.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we didn't talk about a whole lot
a
of
lot of
stuff,
stuff.
right? So I think, I'd love to have you back on and really dive into your journey with the carnivore thing, and
Yeah.
and what you do on a daily basis, and what little hacks and tricks you found that are, like, for someone maybe investigating it, like, these are some things that make things so much better for you, right?
Yeah.
So there's your prep work. So we usually
Yeah.
ask our guests, typically it's around the War Dragons community, but if you had to give a shout out to one person only, we'll open it up wide for anyone, anywhere. Who would it
Sure.
be?
I definitely give a shout out to my girlfriend Anne. She's been very supportive in a lot of ways. So she's probably going to watch this, and hopefully she appreciates being outed in public.
Awesome. All right. Well, folks, thank you everyone for giving us some of your time today. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Leave a thumbs up if you did. If you didn't, give us a thumbs down. Throw a comment in there. Click the subscribe button. Everyone loves that thing. Click it. Do it. Click. It's easy. Click. Ooh, bang. We put out one video a week, right? We're not going to annoy you. So, and most importantly, wherever you are, whenever you're listening to this, have an amazing day. Thank you so
See you
much.
later, everybody.
Thank you.